Hey, this is Danny Eny with Firepole Marketing, and you're listening to Stephanie O'Brien's Moved by Purpose podcast.
I think as I read information, that kind of dictates my action. So I really have to get focused on the front end on what I'm putting in my brain. And so there's many shiny things I'll discard that are very interesting and I'm curious about, but I have to be very careful with my reading. It just starts with my reading that I have a system there.
Are you longing to know what your purpose is? Are you on the wrong career path? Do you feel like there must be more to life? Don't worry, there's hope. It's time to be moved by purpose. Now your host, Stephanie O'Brien.
You're listening to the Moved by Purpose podcast, and it is your host today, Stephanie O'Brien. I am so excited to be with you today, and very excited to share the conversation I had with this inspiring guest, Daryl Lyons. He brings a faith-based approach to guiding the ambitious entrepreneur. He is from a family of entrepreneurs, advises hundreds of small business owners, and is a successful small business owner himself. In fact, New York Times best-selling author Dave Ramsey calls Daryl a rock star. As co-founder of Pax Financial Group in San Antonio, Texas, Daryl has led the organization to become one of the fastest growing companies in San Antonio and one of the best places to work, according to San Antonio Business Journal. He was a recipient of the John C. Maxwell Leadership Award in 2015, and Mayor Julian Castro has recognized Daryl for his involvement in redeveloping a part of the city by naming a park the Daryl W. Lyons Park in his honor. He resides in San Antonio, Texas, where he worships at Oak Hills Church, led by Max Lucado and Randy Frazee. He is married to Carice, and they have 4 beautiful children. And without any further delay, I am going to welcome Daryl to the show. Welcome to the show, Daryl. I am so honored to have you on today.
Thank you for having me. I listened to your last show, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Now, we tried this attempt before and had some technical difficulties, so I thank you for your patience in rescheduling, because sometimes in life, things don't go according to plan, and you have to adjust. Yeah, so thank you for that.
You're pretty calm under pressure, so that was good. You can tell a lot about a person under pressure, right? You know, you handle yourself very well.
Oh, that's really funny. I'm going to have to replay that for my closest friends and family. They might have something different to say, but thank you for that.
Exactly. Forward it over to them.
Yeah. So the first question I ask every guest on the show is, let us have a little background about yourself and what were the events that led you to starting Pax Financial Group?
Yeah, so I really got into wanting to understand money really early in life. It was one of those things where I was really focused. When I had graduated from high school in a small town in Texas called Castroville, Texas, it's a really great community. But we had bounced around a little bit in my youth around Texas, mainly in the South Texas area. And we had family that just didn't ever have money. We ended up living in a little trailer park in Castroville, Texas. And I just wanted to learn how people made money. I had friends with nice houses and seemed to be stable, and I really just wanted to learn how it was done. So when I graduated, I ended up getting an academic scholarship to a university in Texas called St. Mary's University. And one of the first things that I did was worked at a bank, because in my mind, that's where the money was at, right? So I could learn about money, maybe make money, but I could definitely learn in that environment. So I worked at a Bank of America right at Bandera and Woodlawn. And I say that because the area is densely populated, very low income, one of the highest teenage pregnancy rates in the entire country, and predominantly Spanish speaking. So I learned how to serve that community and learn Spanish and learn money. It was a really great experience. And I worked about 35 hours a week at bank. And so as I started to navigate through what I wanted to do in the different career paths, I found myself taking an accounting course, and I was pretty good at that. And then I took a finance course where the professor said, here's a bunch of fake money, and whoever makes the most money at the end of the semester gets a good grade. And I had won that. And this was in 99, so this was a pretty interesting time for markets. And so I had done some things that won me that course. So I put together this idea that I'm now starting to get some fundamental skill sets in banking, lending. I understood what CDs were and basic checking, savings, demand deposit stuff. Really understood that well, and credit. And then I also understood tax. I got an accounting degree, but then I also understood investments. So I thought, how do you put all this together? And I care about people a lot, and how do you do this in a way that really serves people? And there's really not much part of me that wanted to be on Wall Street. That just didn't resonate with how God has gifted me. I read a book called Liar's Poker that was read by Michael Lewis, so I kind of understood what that jungle was like. And I really wanted to stay in San Antonio. I have a strong conviction in this community. And so I decided to set up shop here and be a financial planner. I did that right out of college, December 11th, 1999. I got a lot of other letters behind my name, but I started my business officially 8 years ago, and I co-founded it with 2 other guys, and we called it PAX Financial Group, and it's really done well, and I'm really proud of it.
So you said that, does your industry require you to get all of those? You said you have a lot of letters behind your name. Was that something that you did as a requirement in your industry, or were you still kind of searching for what you wanted to do and trying to clarify that?
Oh, that's a good question. No, I was pretty focused. I knew what I wanted to do. I would do research before I jump into things. So in my particular financial industry, you have 2 career paths. Predominantly, you have what is called a chartered financial analyst, which is an understated designation after somebody's name, probably equivalent of an MBA or more in the studies. Those people end up typically working in major metropolitan areas, managing people's money, very much Wall Street, and very grueling. I mean, as a matter of fact, I've been in an environment where I've had to manage people's money with a lot of attention, and you just don't sleep. When I was managing money to a high degree, I would watch the European markets overnight. You always kind of worry, and you never are focused anything outside of the money you're managing. So that's the chartered financial analyst. On the other side is the financial planner, which is what most consumers and people, they engage with the financial planner. And that's another designation that requires a tremendous amount of work and testing. But I did the CFP knowing that's what I wanted to do. At that point, I wasn't kicking tires at all. I was very committed, and I wanted to get that designation, and I did get some more, but that's probably the most significant one, the CFP. I did it before I had kids, and it was kind of weird, Stephanie. So what I would do, I would study for like 4 hours, and then I would play Madden football for an hour on my video game set, and then I would study another 4 hours. So I had this system of video games and studying, but it worked for me, and I passed it, and it's really served me well, and it served the community well too. I think in our industry, which is just like a lot of industries, it just doesn't always have a good name or reputation. But that CFP designation, if a consumer finds a CFP, typically they're getting a higher standard than they would otherwise.
Okay. So you mentioned that you were really focused. Now, that's a big word for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Because I think that at least most of the ones that I have interviewed, that it took them a while to find their focus. So do you have any tips on, I love that your study, just how you studied. Everybody is different, and you have to find what works for you. But for the people that really struggle with finding focus, do you have any tips? Because you said you were able to be focused and maintain that.
It is a really good question. I know Warren Buffett, he was sitting around a table with a number of very successful people, and he was also with Mr. Bill Gates. And they wanted to corner those 2 men and ask them if they could agree upon one attribute that made them very successful. And after, I guess, some huddling and conversation, they came up with the number 1 attribute that made them successful was focus. And so that's got to resonate. And so if we're distracted, I think, by the shiny objects, I think it's really detrimental to our ability to grow personally and professionally. I am way more focused, and I don't know how to say this, it sounds so arrogant, but I'll substantiate a little bit. I'm way more focused than most. I get that, but I still struggle with focus too. In fact, I have a mentor right now that's helping me stay focused. So, you get to the point where you feel like, okay, I've really got this focus thing down, and then another shiny object comes up and you want to chase it. So, yes, focus is always kind of something that we're always massaging and always working on. Right now, for example, just to give you an idea, so I'm a financial advisor, but I'm also CEO of a company, and I'm also an author. And I had to figure out, where do I focus my time and how do I focus? And so I have somebody that's walking life with me that I told him I want to make sure that my focus, my energy, the stuff that I read is focused on the leadership. So right now, for example, this might help your listeners as well. One of the things that I do is I actually focus on what I read. If it's a magazine article, I will set it aside and I'll read it on Fridays. Now, I'll only read magazine articles that are relative to personal finance. If it's email, I will only read email information if it's relative to the economy. And then I'll only read books on leadership. So I read 4 president biographies a year and a lot of Jim Collins. Every year I evaluate my reading plan because I think as I read information, that kind of dictates my action. So I really have to get focused on the front end on what I'm putting in my brain. And so there's many shiny things I'll discard that are very interesting and I'm curious about, but I have to be very careful with my reading. It just starts with my reading that I have a system there.
Wow. So you break it down to even the smallest thing, which is starting with reading and what you're learning. So you are very intentional, which is a big word, intentional about what you're doing with even the smallest detail. And what I've learned too is focus is very, very critical to the success of your business. And what partners very closely with that is discipline. So I almost feel like you can't be focused without being disciplined. It seems like you have to first, I don't know, for me and from what other people I've noticed when I've interviewed them, it seems like they've had to, for those who may have lacked focus and had difficulty getting focus, it seemed like the preparation and training in order to finally get that was discipline. Getting up earlier in the morning, having a clear plan of what you're going to be reading and knowing where you want to go, and then being intentional about getting yourself there.
Yeah, it's very challenging. I really think this conversation is great because even when I talk about it, it helps me just get better at it. It is always a challenge, and I don't want to be the victim of focus. Focus, I may offend some of the audience because they're not all Texans, but I'm from Texas, so I go hunting, right? So I hunt for deer, I harvest the deer, I process it, I respect the animal, and we eat it as a family. It's part of what we do. It's very cultural here in San Antonio, Texas. But when I get the deer in the scope, I'm very focused, right? Now, the challenge with focus is sometimes I don't see, like maybe I'm focused on a deer, but I may not see another animal or a big buck outside of the focus, right? So there are times where I have to really try to, and typically I do this every quarter. So every quarter I take a week off and reevaluate my focus because I don't want to be focused to the degree that I can't see things outside of my scope. You know what I mean? So my focus is, it's so important to stay focused, but then I take a breather every quarter for 1 week and I just breathe and reevaluate the focus. The focus as well is listed on my shower wall of all the areas in which I'm focused on. I put it on my shower wall, not just for me, but for my wife so she can be a part of those things that I'm trying to strive for. And it could be altruistic or it could be professional, but there's some specific action items I want to accomplish, and she's really encouraging and helps me and reminds me of the things that we want to do for our family, because I have, some focus goals for our family as well.
Good. So, it's that work-life balance where it's the whole person and the whole life rather than just strictly business. And I think some people get off balance where they're so intently focused on getting their business off the ground and sustainable that in the meantime they're neglecting other areas in their life and then wonder kind of what happened. So yeah. I think that's really good that you set that example.
Yeah, we were talking just a few minutes ago in my office about how Steve Jobs and how focused he was. And the byproduct of that focus was some kids who were really hurt. So for me, I'm going to be careful there. So if you look at some of my desires that I have, they're very much balanced. So I'm focused. I date my kids. I have 4 kids. I date every month. Every one of them gets a date, which is me opening the doors for one of my 3 girls, me just looking them eye to eye, talking about life, asking them questions. We even role play. Like, that's a part of my focus, is I want to role play with them, because as they deal with life, I want to be able to wrestle with life and kind of make it come alive in a role play. So they're very, very focused, even with my kids. I think it's all healthy, and I don't want to wear myself out being focused too much, but my wife's real good at telling me to slow down, and she really keeps me in check, so I give her a lot of credit for that.
Yes, it's really important. The people around us are extremely important that we're aware, are they supporting us? Or, okay, if you're married, you can't, I don't encourage ending your relationship with your spouse. But for those that might have friendships or things where the people are distracting or not supportive, and I'm not saying where they're constantly just like the yes man. Sometimes supportive relationships are people that are calling you out for things, just like your wife was saying, you need to slow down. We need those people. And if you don't have those, I always encourage you to be intentional about having those types of relationships in your life and surrounding you. Okay. Now, I want to transition to a new question. Finances are a big part of business. Well, it's a big part of life.
Yeah.
But some people are not, you seem to have a very disciplined, very focused wiring, and that is such a beautiful gift and strength. Others are more spontaneous and kind of live by the seat of their pants, and things like paying attention to numbers and taxes and things are not as attractive to them, and so they put it off, they procrastinate, or it's not a sexy thing for them. So
yeah.
I would love to hear more of kind of maybe if you have stories or maybe kind of a warning of to motivate us, Daryl, about why we should not be putting it off and how we need to get over that we don't like it.
Yeah, no,
and do it.
It's a real issue. It's really the left side of the brain that we have to engage in. It's like working out. It's stressful, and if we don't work it out very often, it's just very difficult. And I do struggle with it as well. It's not the funnest thing to do is to manage money. I do have some disciplines again. I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. So our family, we use envelopes, and just kind of the genesis of that was I was working this was right when I graduated college, I was working for a Fortune 100 company, and I was doing very well, and it looked like I was on a path to one of those major metropolitan areas, and I made a commitment to stay in San Antonio. So I quit the job, and again, I was doing well. I was partner of the year and rookie of the year and really on an upward trajectory. I decided to quit. At the same time, my wife decided to quit teaching, and we had our firstborn, and we were cool with that. But the math didn't make sense. It was just something that I felt called to do. I had a BMW convertible. It was a nice car. I had to sell that. I had to sell everything. In fact, my son thought he was going on eBay at the time. But we just needed to really downsize. And so as I was making this career change, she would drop me off at work in the morning with one car and with the baby in the back seat, and then pick me up. And that's kind of awkward when you're in finance and people are driving Lexuses and there's expectations of what you should be doing financially. But we had decided that we wanted to make a change in the way we were spending money. And I thought Dave Ramsey was clever, but he really wasn't for me. At this point, I had a bunch of letters behind my name, and I was sophisticated. So the Dave Ramsey guy he was for everyone else but not me. But in the point of really struggling financially, it was during that year and a half after I had quit. We really ran out of money. We had too much credit card debt. I couldn't pay the mortgage. It was just really difficult. And I wasn't sure how we were going to be able to make ends meet. And in my mind, the insecurity that goes through my head that we're going to, this is a generational thing. I'm going to go back to a trailer park and trying to push through this and not be poor like my family before them. I really don't want that. But you get this season that you feel like you're just digressing. So a lot of prayer, a lot of tears, Again, I have a very encouraging wife. She encouraged me to push through, and we did. And by the way, as a financial person, I was giving advice, and I was broke, and that's like a shop teacher with no fingers. It was very difficult. At that moment, we had decided to just be a little bit more disciplined, and so we made a commitment to start using cash. We started buying what Dave Ramsey was selling in terms of the philosophy, and so we use envelopes to pay for things. And so even today, and this is 10 years later, and we're much better financially now, but we use envelopes to pay for things, and inside the envelopes are cash. And so when the cash runs out, we don't spend anymore. I also use a Smart Dollar software. That's a good software that is a really easy way to track a budget. I do encourage those that are entrepreneurs to every quarter pay taxes, 25% of your net income. So net income is revenue minus expenses equals net income, and take 25% of that net income and set it aside, and then every quarter transfer that money to the electronic funds transfer payment system, which is an IRS system that allows you to pay your taxes online. And that's just a good habit to get into while you're broke. And then the last suggestion is, we made a commitment when we were broke to give 10% of everything that we made to those that are hurting and hungry. And doing that when you're broke is a good habit to start, and frankly, it's been done by Rockefeller and other successful people, and it's a habit that hasn't changed for us today. And so now giving has become a very practical and systematic thing that we've deployed with our finances. So those are some just practical ways that I think that might encourage your listeners to start thinking about their money a little differently.
You said so many things in that story that I want to follow up on, but for the sake of time, I'm going to just pick a couple things. Where do I start? Okay, so you mentioned that you felt called to, was it leave your job?
Yeah.
Or to change? Okay. Yeah. Now, in that obedience, things were not sunshine and flowers every day for you.
No.
And I can very much resonate with that, and I'm confident that there are people listening that can relate to that, where you feel called to do something, and in that obedience, you're stepping out and things are not what you were expecting them to be or hoping they would be. And I like how you called it a season.
Yeah.
There are seasons of struggle, even though some seasons feel like they're a lifetime.
Yeah.
Because even if they last an hour, we're like, that's too long. I don't want to deal with this pain. So they are temporary. But you also, with that, decided to kind of look for a lesson or to do your part in changing it. Yes, you did. You prayed. You cried out. You did what most people do in these seasons. But then I don't know, I feel like I went through a similar season, and I had the temptation to just kind of blame God for everything and get mad at him. And I think for some people that might be part of the process. But then you decided that there had to be something that needed to change. And I also like that you were tested in an area. This also is a very common pattern I've noticed, that you said you were a financial advisor who was broke.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that there's a lot of people that the very thing they're called to do or to be or to teach on is the very area that they're tested in at a very, very difficult level. And I think because, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but in review of my own situation and with other guests who have had kind of similar stories, they have said because of that, they're so much more equipped to have empathy and compassion with who they're working for, and they have the credible expertise on how to get out of it.
Yeah, it's really neat. I think God just did surgery on me, and I wanted to grab the scalpel and do it myself, but he did a good work on me, and I came out a better person. And yes, I did not like that season, but I think the seasons like when God's probably up in heaven and going, you know, when things are going good, he's probably thinking, yeah, that's great, you're doing good. But when things are bad, he's like, I can use that. And I think he takes those opportunities, and at least for me, has really done some transformation. But also, like you said, which is a great point, the degree of empathy that I have for people that are just dealing with life is totally different. And so as an advisor now, I just feel like it's really, really cool for me to be able to help people in difficult places. And I know that's a gift because I've talked with other advisors and trained hundreds of advisors before, and they've heard my story. And I don't think anything of my story necessarily, but they said, Daryl, yeah, but I don't have that story. And they do. It's just different. They just need to unpack and think through it. But the reality is that in that difficult season, God was doing an incredible work. And just like any president says, I'll never let a good crisis go to waste, I think God says the same thing. I think our part in that is just acknowledging that he's doing a good work. And on the other side is saying, okay, what was God doing in that season? And then figure out how to leverage it.
I completely agree. And the discipline to change it, to find the lesson and to change it and to choose to move forward. I think in moments like that, you can choose to get angry and bitter and hard and turn your back on what you were called to do, or you can press through in what is walking by faith. Like, you can't see what's going on. You don't understand why it's happening. You don't even know when this is going to be over and when this is going to end. But you praise through it with a trust that there's a higher purpose for it. It will turn around for good. And there's a transformational masterpiece at work here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
mm-hmm.
Oh, but yeah, surgery is not really ever pleasant. So
No.
the cutting away, not fun.
No.
I've really appreciated you sharing that story. I understand that you have a book that will be coming out. I'd love to hear more about this book.
Yeah, so I initially launched it last year, and it did well as a self-published book. And one of the reasons it did well was because Dave Ramsey gave me a raving endorsement, so that name travels. But then my self-publishing arm, which was through Crossbooks, they actually went out of business. So I was released from my contract, which was such a blessing. And I had a little bit of a track record, so I had my pick and choosing of a more major publisher. And so I chose Morgan James, and they chose me. And it was a good entrepreneurial fit. They appreciated my faith, and they appreciated my entrepreneurial bent. So one of the things they said is, we want to stop production of your book to give it new life, and then they're going to relaunch it January 5th. I do have pre-orders available. It's a very attractive package. If somebody wants to order it now, they can. Otherwise, it'll be available January 5th. The title of the book is Small Business, Big Pressure. And you can go to the website and smallbusinessbigpressure.com to learn more. And some of the stories I shared today are actually in that book.
Oh, nice. Awesome. I love the title. It's very, very creative.
Thanks.
Is it a financial book? Is it an entrepreneurship? Is it a personal story?
Yeah. So what happened is we had some success. So I was a financial advisor, and then we started to grow. So one guy, now our company has 18 employees, and we're doing pretty well. And as we grew, we became one of the best places to work in the city, one of the fastest growing companies. So I started getting phone calls from small business owners in our community and frankly across the world that wanted to just ask about operations, marketing, staffing. And so I thought, there's a need for peer-to-peer leadership. And so I started teaching classes to the community, and there were workshops, and those would fill up. And one day I looked at the stacks of papers and books that I was using to research, and I go, you know what? I've got a book here. So I got strep throat, and it prevented me from working, but it didn't prevent me from doing some things. And so I typed for a week as I was recovering and just pounded out a book. It was much longer than a week. It took me about a year to write, but at least it got a framework going. And I had about 20 different people, entrepreneurs and small business owners, review it and massage it. And basically what it is a playbook for a small business owner that really is missing in the marketplace. How do you manage your business finances? How do you just basically understand what is an income statement? What is a balance sheet? Some basic stuff that I know a lot of people just don't know, but they need to know. So I put it in there. I want to put it very simple for people. How do I hire somebody? What questions do I ask? How do I let somebody go? In terms of creating the right culture, what do I need to do to start a culture? I don't even know what a culture is, much less to put a framework about how do I build a culture. And then how do I set goals? What's the proper way to set goals so that I can stay focused? So I really give the reader a very practical way of building a culture. building a small business. And then, of course, I feel compelled to share my story and my faith walk throughout.
Nice. This sounds like a really, really great book to check out for anyone who is thinking of starting a business or already has started a business and wants to know a little bit more about some of the things he's mentioned. Check out this book, because those are the questions that some of those I get, and I like that I have a book now that that I can recommend that they read, because it's not necessarily something, all those kind of details are not ignite my flame. So I'm really glad that there is a tool, someone else who has the expertise. And that is the beautiful thing about networking and collaboration, is you don't have to be all things to all people. You know, if there's something that is not your claimed area of expertise, go out and find someone that can leverage that. So,
That's great. Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So small business, big pressure. And what is the pre-order? You said there's a nice package going on right now.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get the word out. So the packages, they'll get the book in January when it's out. They'll also get an ebook version of it. Then they'll get another ebook that I wrote, and they'll get this one right away. And this is 30 small business startup mistakes. And then there's no shipping. So it's all for, I think, $15.99. So they get all that. Pretty good deal.
Nice. That's a great deal. Awesome. All right. Be sure to check out that. And then where else can they connect with you if they need financial advising or anything, any questions they have about whatever it is financial with their business or personal portfolio? How can they connect with you?
You know, one of the best places to connect with me is on LinkedIn, a very professional platform. So if they go to LinkedIn, type in my name, Daryl W. Lyons, you'll find me that way. Twitter, my Twitter handle, I'm not on Twitter as much. I do post things from time to time, but it's Daryl W. Lyons as well, and so they can follow me on Twitter. But I tend to enjoy LinkedIn even more than Twitter, just the higher degree of professionalism. And so I would encourage people to not only follow me, but to really spend some time creating a good presentation for their own business on LinkedIn as well.
Mm-hmm. LinkedIn is great. It's one of my favorite as well. All right. It has been an honor and pleasure to chat with you.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you again, Daryl.
Oh, no, thanks. I really appreciate you taking time, and I had a lot of fun. It went by fast.
Yeah, it did, really.
The challenge with focus is sometimes I don't see, like maybe I'm focused on a deer, but I may not see another animal or a big buck outside of the focus, right? So there are times where I have to really try to, and typically I do this every quarter. So every quarter I take a week off and reevaluate my focus, because I don't want to be focused to the degree that I can't see things outside of my scope.
So that was Daryl Lyons, a very big blessing to have on the show today. And I hope and believe that you have received some benefit from listening into our conversation. I really appreciate his transparency and sharing the story. The part that really resonated with me, because I've gone through my own season of this, is feeling like you're kind of a hypocrite where you're called to advise on something that you're struggling with yourself. And I really admire how he took action to change things around. There was more to his story. I'm sure we can read it further in more detail in his book, Small Business, Big Pressure. Make sure you check that out. I believe he said it was smallbusinessbigpressure.com. Pre-order it for that package. You can get 2 ebooks and a print version, so that's pretty exciting stuff. So make sure you check him out. If you need any financial services, connect with him on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great social media platform. If you're not already on there, you should be, because if you're working or owning a business, it's a powerful networking site to be on. So, and if you have not done so already, as I say in every episode, if you got value from this episode, please make sure that you subscribe, rate, and write a review. Take 5 minutes of your time to do that. Share this episode with someone that you believe could benefit from it. This helps spread the word, helps more people, and helps me get found, and it just adds value. It helps more people be inspired and to get motivated and to go after and pursue their dreams. Too many people are living defeated, small lives, overwhelmed, not knowing what to do, feeling stuck, and that is what my mission is to help you get unstuck, help you find your purpose, help you find your wings. If you have not subscribed to my newsletter, make sure you come on over to movebypurpose.net. I got a new website, and I'm pretty excited about that. I'll be getting new photos and doing kind of a slow branding update, and then we'll do a big reveal later on. But the website has been updated. Make sure you check that out. Stay in touch. I blog as well about once a month, sometimes twice a month. And there's just valuable resources, free downloads, PDFs, tools on where to begin, a list of services and tools I use to run my business. And ask a question. Reach out to me. I typically answer, if not directly, in a podcast or in a blog. And I'm always excited to hear from you. So I'll talk to all of you guys next week. Keep moving forward.